long did that time period go on? Like, when did this come up on the radar and say, okay, we need to get them in
We were
compliance?
getting garbage complaints because there was piles of raw garbage in front of the house.
Okay.
So the adjacent property owners were complaining about garbage piled up.
Okay.
As far as we understood it, the building wasn't occupied, we didn't know who owned it, we didn't know what was going on. We started contacting Mike to say, hey, there's garbage piled up everywhere at this place. You gotta sort it out. Once we figured out what was going on, we were like, okay, it's not in compliance, what's going on, what's going on? We finally sent a certified letter because we weren't getting a response. So the certified letter says, hey, you got 60 days on both, a lot of the items in 60 days.
Okay, so how long is that time period? When you first started
That's-
this, taking complaints to?
So just based on the certified letter, you've got probably 5 months. Because you've got 2 months once you get a certified letter, and there was probably 2 or 3 months prior to sending the letter. The property hasn't had a CSC, I mean, it didn't have a CSC for years before that. So I mean, this wasn't an overnight.
So, can I ask, were the administrative fees levied retroactively based
No.
on those?
Nope.
Okay.
No,
Because, this is a really confusing, there's like multiple parcels, multiple people,
One
like
parcel with
communication.
two
All right, multiple
structures.
parcels with 2 structures, multiple people involved. But, so, my understanding was that the letters were sent in the fall of last year. When I was brought in about this, it was April. And at that time, they had already been to the Board of Public Service. One of the fines was reduced from like 10 to like $5,000. And then, no, you guys are both shaking your
There
head.
was no reduction of funds.
But there were things that were lost that then were
There were a
found.
couple of inspections that they were being
There was an election
fined for
inspection.
that
That
had
had
actually
taken
been
place.
completed and submitted.
Right, and so did those penalties ever go away?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So then in April, I think everyone left the meeting, as far as I was concerned, with an understanding of what needed to be done to bring the property into compliance. And now I'm hearing that it was like September, October before the property was in compliance. That was in April. Has it been in compliance longer than September, October?
It doesn't matter because the fees were put on hold.
Okay, so it's just between October and April that they accrued all these fees.
No.
So I don't think I understand.
believe so.
I'm trying to understand. I mean,
They
this is
accrued
not,
fees all the way until they appealed them.
and the appeal was done,
Right, and the appeal stops the fees.
and the appeal was done in April. They went in front of the Board of Public Service, maybe it was March.
Yeah, it was April 4th, actually.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so, and the letters were dated like in September.
Okay. I don't know.
So,
I don't know this material from
well, me neither.
I'm-
I'm going off my memory and also a process that I only have like tangential familiarity with. So, so yeah, I think just to broaden it back out to what we could do at a legislative level, like feels like 2 things. One is this sort of feels like an appeal of your specific situation. And I don't know if that's anything that we do, but I just want to call it out. But then the other thing is, looking at the accrual of administrative fees and whether or not, like, I'm trying to understand sort of what you are here to accomplish legislatively,
Okay.
is to look at, for us to look at the administrative fees, for us to look at the Board of Public Service, like what, like where are we going here?
So.
Broad
Yeah,
strokes.
so this was not my intention to be here. I found out on Friday that this is where I was supposed to become.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
had asked for time with the common council to reverse the decision of the Board of
Okay,
Appeals.
so that's that
The-
specific appeal of your situation.
Yeah, but
Right.
in context of your purpose, I think I think that there's an issue with the appeal system, and I think that really does need to be addressed. And I think there problem with the terminology, using, calling fines administrative fees. There is no way on earth that $10,000 was the cost of administrating that. And in fact, having increased, I mean, the fine automatically goes up every day. No one's doing any work. There's no administration involved, but yet the price keeps going up. So it's clearly not an administrative fee.
Okay.
It's a punitive fine, and it should be handled as a punitive fine. And I believe that would take it out of the hands of the Board of Public Service.
Okay.
And not to, you know, just so anyone else listening knows, my very first thing I said in my email to these folks is that I really appreciate the work that public servants do. I've had my own firsthand experience. I know very well the feeling of being unappreciated, but I'm very well aware of it, and I do appreciate it and I respect it. This is not in any way a grievance against any of the boards. This is just a culture that has developed over time, and this is where we are.
So what could it be done differently? I guess where I'm at, Mike, is that if we were to change the system, and we can, how do we get property owners' attention?
Mhm.
For the 5 years that I've been doing this, I've listened to Steve talk about that difficulty of obtaining people's interest and getting them into compliance.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, this isn't the only parcel that there's been an issue. And it might have stayed under the radar, you know, for a few more years if the tenants hadn't started packing the garbage outside of the structure.
Mhm.
That's something that on our neighborhood, on my street, we started suffering from is a rental property. They started stacking their garbage outside.
Yeah. Well, okay.
And so what is it that could be done from your perspective? Because you own multiple parcels with structures on them within the city. What could we do differently that captures property owners' attentions earlier so that we don't accrue such a massive fee?
That is a good question. I think, and that's a question I've actually made some phone calls and asked people their opinions, because I don't have, this is not an easy issue. This is a very complicated question, because there are multiple, so my approach in life is what makes the world work for everyone,
Sure.
not just for me.
Right.
So I think what needs to take place is kind of a brainstorming thing with landlords, with people who live next door to a bad baseball rental, with people who live next door to a good baseball rental, bad student house, good student house, people who have different perspectives so that everyone can understand what each other's concerns are. And out of that, I think, might come some better system that would accommodate everyone's needs. As I mentioned in the letter, I said it to the Board of Public Service. I remember sitting in one of the rooms up here with a bunch of people when they were discussing, when it was just an idea to give the code office the power to fine landlords. And I was the only landlord in the room who was in favor of it. But I was and still am. I think people need to take care of things. We can't have just everything falling apart. On the other end of that pendulum swing is also the reality of the situation, the age of the housing stock in the city. There are lots of factors, so it's not a simple
I
question.
thought maybe you were gonna say personalization.
Well, that's a good one. I think addressing it as a community effort rather than as a punishment,
Mhm.
it's, I don't know, I fortunately still like these guys, because they're good guys, I think, but, but I can see, and I know people are really pissed off. There are people who are really pissed off. I'm not, because I loved it here, and
Right,
I wanna work on improving it.
Right, and that's what I'm just asking. So, I mean, this isn't a dead issue. I appreciate the time that you put into this. I believe we'll keep this on our agenda and work on it.
Well,
That'll give Steve an opportunity to, I guess you didn't know that this was coming today, so next month maybe we can have some more information from your perspective of what captures people's attention, because
Well, those fines absolutely catch people's attention. There's
Right.
no question about that.
But before
the-
before the fees kick in, there was emails, there was some kind of a correspondence, whether it's
Yeah.
a certified letter, an
Mhm.
email.
In this case,
I'd rather
those
see
fail.
emails because certified letters cost taxpayers money, so.
Well, emails are free,
Correct.
and phone
That's-
calls are basically free.
Right.
So, the phone calls I always thought were great. It just, especially, I used to rent primarily to students, and unbeknownst to me, I was immediately, vilified, human. I was just not, in some people's eyes. So, getting a phone call, having that interaction, feeling like there was a cooperative effort between the code office and myself made me feel like a member of the community, and that was from the get-go. Peter Friedman had lots of critics. I happen to love the guy. We got along great. He wanted this, wanted a 4x4 instead of a 2x4. I put in a 4x4. The stair railing, whatever. It was fine. Just, get it, do it right, and move on. But, and the problem that I'm seeing, and I mentioned in the letter, is when something doesn't go as expected. Like a couple of the cases in there were people who, one of them had never gotten any of these letters. And this is similar to this case, my case, because even though I got them, my son didn't. And I'm not in that with him.
Right.
He's on his own with that.
Right.
So, what happens when things go this far off because the communication didn't take place? And the thing is, there's a baseball rental in here, and then I said, the first example I provided, the Board of Public Service cut the fee by more than half because she had because of her job, wasn't home,
Right.
didn't get the notifications.
They have a lot of latitude.
They cut it in half. And actually, that was part of my thinking when I thought, $4,500. I thought, okay, because that was what it said, it was gonna go to onto the taxes, but $4,500. Well, I thought, if they've cut it in half for him, like they did for that one, that's a lesson he won't forget.
Right.
And I thought, okay, fine.
Right, and so
Let him-
how long do you have to pay off this fine?
Well, we don't know exactly. As I said, I lent him $1,000 that I brought over to Jeannie's office. I brought a check to her,
Mhm.
and then the payment agreement is $100 a month, because that's what they can afford.
For
But
how
that's,
long?
for law for the rest of your life. I don't know.
I'd
A
like to hear
lot.
from Ginny.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah, Mike and I-
$1,200 a
yeah,
year,
Mike and I have
8 years.
corresponded, and I agreed to put him on a payment plan until October of '25, for them to be able to pay what they can on a monthly basis. I'm not looking for, $1,000 a month, whatever they can afford, but whatever's unpaid as of October of '25 will then get re-levied on the '26 tax bill, and I made that clear to Michael.
Okay.
So you really only have less than a year to get this done?
I suppose. Well, we'll see. But my contention is that this is an outrageous sum of money for not turning in paperwork. When the inspections were done, it's not like inspectors found, oh my God, look at this dangerous situation. It wasn't at all the case. No complaints were ever brought to the code office from the tenants, because the tenants were happy.
Right, so in this
Good
particular
place.
case, legislative, we can't make a decision on your particular case.
Right, I'm not
So
asking for that.
that might be a council,
Yes, that's what this is all was
You could-
originally intended for.
the council might be able to come in and make that decision, but
Mhm.
not this body,
Right,
okay?
yeah.
So maybe you and your son, can accumulate your case together and have a definitive timeline, like what
Yeah,
you're just now
timeline.
telling me that you had the inspections done. So like in your letters, none of that was done. So before you come to the council, I would suggest that you have the timeline clearly laid out.
Great.
When you started all this, when the property was purchased, go right on down through the whole thing before you come to the council, so that, the council can take a look at this on the $10,000 administrative fee. So
Okay.
I just wanna, I gotta cut you off here, cause we're gonna move forward.
Okay, before you cut me off, I request that you take a look at the letter that I emailed.
I read it last night.
Okay,
I just
well,
read it.
there are issues in there that are legislative issues, serious legislative issues. and
Like I
it's all-
said, this is not a dead issue, this is just the beginning of,
Okay.
okay?
Great,
So
so am I allowed to come back?
you're allowed to come.
Because I really would like to participate in how I'm seeing,
The
working
solution.
on
Right, we'd like,
things moving
we'd-
forward. I think it's important. I think
it's important that we find out
Before
how
I
to
moved here, I
capture
was a renter.
landowners' attentions before they get to a $10,000 fine. Obviously,
Yes,
it didn't
yes, but
capture
this
your
was-
attention until
this was,
$4,500,
This
so,
was a crazy
right,
situation.
Right.
Same thing, the woman who never got certified mail and things like that. So
So,
I
in addition to the timeline, I think it would also be helpful for council to understand, like, what the fees are for, how
Mhm.
much
Maybe I
was,
should bring that.
that would be great. Like,
Okay.
what the fees are for, how they, like, what they were initially levied at and where they stand now.
Yeah,
That
I
would be
think
great,
I looked it up last night on our fee schedule, and, yeah, I mean, it can rack up quick, but.
right. And it's
the-
two
The point,
structures
in my
is part
mind,
of
it's not
why-
to have administrative fees, it's about capturing that attention of the landowners, the property owners, and saying, hey, we need you to get into compliance. And
Right.
And do it quickly.
But in cases where there's a legitimate appeal, there needs to be
Sure.
a legitimate appeal process.
Right,
And
you're
there
on
is
that
not
side,
one.
I'm on the side that says, well, why didn't we get compliance long before the administrative fees
I
kick in?
think both of those things are worth
Right,
So-
so,
talking about.
So,
to avoid the $10,000, what was it that we failed at,
Absolutely.
right?
I mean, I've been doing this for over 23 years now. I've never had any issues like this, ever, because it just doesn't happen. And that's not like I've never forgotten about an inspection or something, but as soon as I get a reminder, I take care of it, and that's always how it's been. This is a different situation, and it's like, and no one's fault, but did the communication never reach?
Yeah,
the
that's where
party
I go back to
that
the
needed to
communication
take the
failure, of where you were receiving information, and it should have went to your son, and so,
Well,
that's the beginning of it, but then,
no, I'm not saying that it shouldn't have come to me and it should have gone to my son instead. The code office sent it to me because it was supposed to come to me. I had requested it, he and I agreed the mail would come to me, because I pay close attention to my mail every day, and I pay close attention. If I get something from the code office, it's the first envelope, I get a lot of mail, first envelope that gets opened, because it's my livelihood.
Sure.
It's extremely important to me.
Okay.
And having a good relationship with the code office and having all my properties in compliance is a necessity
Sure.
to me. So, but there are other complications that
It's fine, you don't.
derailed
Correct.
the whole process. And that's where I was looking for some compassion and leniency in an appeal.
Okay. Please come back next month. Please come back next month.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Thank you for
I will be
coming.
very happy. Thank you.
All right. Did you get an opportunity to read the 111 pages?
Of the communications thing? Yeah. Where do you want to start? I don't have my computer today, so
You have your what?
I don't have my computer, so
Oh.
I'll do my best here.
Let me find the document.
Since we didn't have a public comment period and we do have someone in the audience, do you want to see if it's next?
Kyle, do you have anything you need to say?
Okay, just checking. Thanks. Okay. Did we have any correspondence?
I didn't receive any.
No? Okay.
Okay, so you don't have your laptop, or are you gonna try and use your?
I'm gonna use my phone.
Okay, so
are we
I'm on
just jumping
page
on D?
44 of the 101, and that is the rules for petitioners at council meetings.
Okay.
That's a document that City Attorney Merzig made.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed this a little bit last month. Did you have an opportunity to go through 1 through 7 and say yay or nay to them? Just to kickstart this, I had said yes from 2 through 7, but no to number 1 because it shouldn't always be derivative of the agenda items. It could be other issues.
Yes, we talked about this last time.
Right.
So are you looking at our last legislative committee packet?
No. Well, I
'Cause
sent you.
mine is only 6 pages. Oh, what you
I
sent
sent
us.
you one and Shannon one last month
Yes, I remember
that
this.
dates back to July? No, it's April 29th, sorry. April 29th.
Thank you. Oh, gosh. Okay. Oh, here we go. The rules for petitioners from Mr. Merzig?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, I think we discussed this at our last meeting with
We
Shannon.
did, I just wanna kind of
Okay, recap?
recap.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree. I think one is not, this is where council meetings is where people go when they don't know where to go
Right.
about something. So I think I would strike that totally also.
So then, the next item I had was limit timing of the individual to speak 3 to 5 minutes. I believe it was, I don't think it was Kirkland, I believe it was, City of Decatur that actually had a electronic device that went on to, yellow light meant something for 2 minutes, green light was something, and then red light was,
They sell visual timers.
yeah.
They're
So,
on Amazon.
instead of somebody holding a card up,
I agree. I think
just-
that, yeah, it needs to be something that's not a person, so
Correct.
that we can all pay attention.
pay attention rather
Yeah.
than looking at cards. So
Yeah.
electronic device, And then page 52. Goes on to, I don't know how I'm gonna describe this to you, because you're gonna be different page numbers. It would be 3D.
Okay.
Agenda
Yep,
information.
got it.
Okay. Public participation at meetings. Again, City of Decatur was 3 minutes unless the majority of the council votes to add more time.
Oh, cool.
I thought that was of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find anything like that in Kirkland, unless you did. Remarks by the public must be about city services and or local public policy matters.
What are your thoughts on that?
It seems
Keep it relevant.
applicable to our time. I mean, listening to issues that are maybe out in the town,
Mm-hmm.
unless it correlates to an issue
Right,
inside
like that
the city.
campground thing.
Right. But I did find this, and it's somewhere on page 52, is once the public is done speaking, the mayor and or the council can respond to the comments made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where some of the public gets frustrated, is that there's no response either initially and or eventually from any of the council members or the mayor. We've definitely heard that from Teresa's Emporium multiple times, that she wasn't getting any response back to her questions at the council level.
Mm-hmm.
So whether we assign this to the council member of the ward that individual lives in,
I thought that was a good idea.
right?
I think it's kind of our role is, and then, you know, if it's brought up in a public forum, then there's a certain amount of awareness around this council member is probably going to be looking into this. You know, they may reach out for information, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But then that takes like the communication, it assigns communication to somebody. I think
Correct.
that's important. So like their representative should be the one to look into it and get back to them.
Right. So when would that be? Is that by the 2 weeks of the next kind of council meeting, if unless it's an issue that needs more time, but.
I mean, I think it's gonna depend on the issue and the person and when they have time. I mean, I think one of the things that is so funny about this is that there are no expectations of council members. So, if we set that expectation and then someone doesn't follow it, they don't get reelected. So, I mean, I don't think we need to be like, well, you didn't get back to them within 2 weeks. I mean, that I think puts a level of undue sort of supervision on
Right.
people that don't necessarily have time to be doing that. So if you don't get back to your constituents, that's a you problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Council member will get back with petitioner.
Mhm. And so one of the things that I really like from, I think I'm in Decatur here, is their communication policy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically, we're setting up the expectation that a council member probably won't have the information right at the tips of their fingers to answer the question. So we will need to ask questions of people who do know more than we do. So under general legislative policies, 2, communication, there's a lot of really good stuff there. One thing that I think is very reasonable says the city manager has requested that when the mayor or council members have requests for information or wish to forward citizen inquiries, they send these requests through the city manager. However, and there's more there, it goes on. It does say, sorry, 1 second.
No, I'm on it, right here.
Okay. While the mayor and council members are always at liberty to speak to any employee, the city manager requests that contacts during work hours be limited to seeking ready information, and then requests that need answers prepared or more extensive information should go through the city manager.
Mhm.
I think that's, to help filter
So you wanna
things.
clarify the actual communication path
Well, if I
that
can
the
be
council member
honest.
needs to get information from, rather than contacting, say, the DPS superintendent,
Well, I think it's a policy that we've been
talking about.
in anticipation of
Right.
adopting for years now,
Right,
like 3 years probably.
easy.
And I think that this is like a pretty nice and mutually respectful outline in terms of, where to go when you need what. So, I think that should be a huge priority for us, is adopting.
Describing the path for communication between the elected and the city staff.
Right, I mean, it's in service of what we're talking about right now, which is how do we answer the community's questions? But I think that in order for us to answer questions, we need access to information in a way that is not like burdensome and is effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
We should, we'll start writing some stuff down and sharing.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was working on community wellness stuff last week, so I didn't have a lot of time for this, but, I'm excited to dig into it for the new year.
Okay.
Come up with something that's effective to help our community and us, I think, just feel more confident in
Yeah,
the information we're receiving.
I really think the follow-up is necessary, though.
Totally. That's the big problem, right? This has been a year-long problem of like, how do we get back to people?
Right. The follow-up has been dropped for like the last 2-3 years, yeah. Okay.
So,
There was on page 72 about the budget, 1.5, so you can take a look at that.
which,
What I found interesting is both cities have what they call study sessions.
oh, nice.
So the council at large on a subject matter, they actually can request to go into a study session just for that particular topic, and I thought that was interesting.
Cool. Okay, yeah, I'll go through, I know you had started a document, so I'll just copy and paste some of my favorite things and add some comments.
Okay. The city of Kirkland was going about responding to the petitions a little bit differently. I
Okay.
think it was on page 85. The presiding officer can decide whether they respond to a petitioner or
Mhm.
the council can vote on it,
Okay,
which
I'm getting
I'm
there.
trying to think of what subject matters they must have run into to have those defined in rules. And then the city of Kirkland, their rules for council vacancies starts on page 89, so I wanted to go to that. That is completely different than anything we had seen.
Okay. This is in Kirkland?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Actually, it was page 88. It's 3.26
Okay, thank you.
vacancies, 3.26.
Yep.
Where one
Oh.
visit, yeah,
Okay.
I don't know how many, I need to look up how many council members they have, but 2,
4.
where did you see that?
Oh, never mind, it says where 2 or more are vacant
Yeah.
and 2 or more remain.
I mean, if they all bail, it runs to the governor.
Right, if less than 2 council members remain, I'm gonna Google them.
So, anyway, I don't think we're to that point, but
No.
my point was that the council as a whole, which goes back to our discussion last month, is that the council as a whole makes the decision of putting appointees up. So we will have to kind of craft this out so that we can get it ready to go to public referendum.
Kirkland, Washington. Tell me how many council members you have. It's the 6th largest city in King County. I know.
Did you find where Decatur used any policy or procedure for vacancies of council
Can't
members?
remember.
I didn't find that. I could have missed it, but
I only do a budget every 2 years.
they also have a budget officer.
Mm. Okay, let's see. City council. It is. Oh, 7.
There's 7.
Yeah. Elected every 2 years to serve 4-year terms.
Right. The fact that they could get to a point where they're
There's
addressing
less
going.
than 2? I know. I thought it was like a really small board. I'm surprised to see 7. That makes me feel like we're doing better than I thought we were.
But
Just to be
have
frank.
they ever gotten to the point where they all bail?
Sounds
Is that
like
what it's in there? Or they were just trying to be so proactive? I don't know. I did not find vacancies, and I'm going back to the beginning of Decatur. I mean, so 2 parts on this is that, on our agenda is process for nomination to vacant council seats, but also the communication, city and community, so. I just don't see it in there.
I just searched vacancy and it's not, it's like about parcels. So, no.
Okay. And then Kirkland goes on to talk about council communicating with the public via social media.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out. Kirkland?
Kirkland, that's page 90. Greg, I think we can take, or Bonnie, we can take park rules off. I think we're pretty good on park
Yeah.
rules.
Oh, but there was a suggestion for the nomination to the Board of Ethics, and I would like to look at that briefly if we can.
Okay.
Let's see. Legislative committee packets.
Regarding the park rules, my note from last time was Carrie was gonna rewrite the code section and bring it back to this committee. I think that was attached.
Yes, she did. Sure enough. An ordinance modifying chapter 194. Okay. Single generator motor vehicle. Whoa. Wait a minute. I don't know if I saw this the first time, but some of this makes sense because it's about driving on the grass, but it says no motor vehicle, bicycle, or other vehicle of any description shall be driven, propelled, parked, or left standing in any public park except upon along and over driveways, parkways, and parking places. But like bikes, like if my kid rides his bike over to the playground, is that a problem? According to this, it is. And I just don't know that that's like the intent of that. I feel like
Yeah, let's just bring
Yeah,
this back, cause
we'll
I wanna read this.
we'll renew it, we'll review it and approve it in January. There's hereby established a board of ethics consisting of members.
Yeah, I wanna,
The mayor shall appoint city officer. Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, it doesn't have anything about the proxy.
right,
And did we ever agree on whether or not the person needed to reside in our ward? Or not? Like the name.
I
of
thought
the
we
person?
wanted it in the board, cause it kinda made sense. But then there was some kind of discussion about, well, what if you couldn't find anybody, and
Right,
I struggled to understand that there's more than 1,600 people in your ward.
yeah, I could find a few people. I mean, but again, it all depends on the, enthusiasm of the council member to do that type of thing. Um, yeah, I would like it to be someone from my ward, but that's a personal preference. I mean, it should be a city resident, right?
Absolutely. Do we need that defined in there?
I don't know. What I'm finding is if things aren't written down, then it's a gray area.
Okay. So we need to add that the individual will be a city resident?
Unless we decide it should be someone from each board, in which case that's self-explanatory.
So then, the second sentence, each member of the common council shall submit a name to the mayor. You could wordsmith that to
The name of a resident of their ward to the mayor for appointment,
shall submit a name, right?
or the name of a city resident, depending on how granular we wanna get. Cause, I mean, the other thing I'm thinking is like, it has to be someone who you would want to appoint, and then also they have to want to serve.
Correct.
So potentially putting the ward limitation on there is not in the best interest of like the long-term viability of the board. Just being a city resident is fine.
Right, so we need to add that the council member will select someone from their ward. Then we know that it's a city resident. And it
Right, right,
forces the council member to go out and talk to people.
okay. I mean, I'm into it,
Yeah.
but then, okay, so what happens, I think this is where Shannon was going with this. What if you go out and talk to people and you can't find anybody from your ward? Then what?
I don't think that's the problem, I think it's the amount of time that it's going to take to have the conversations. It takes a while to go out and talk to 50 people. Cause you gotta
Yes.
capture them. Which, we know that because we've run for election, and so it takes time to go out and find people.
Yes.
Have a conversation.
But are you gonna go door to door and say, hey, do you wanna serve on the board of
I'm
ethics?
definitely gonna start with a phone call,
Okay,
say my shoes.
okay. Here's the thing, I don't anticipate myself having any trouble. I don't know that if I was a different person with the same outside obligations, that I would have the time to, on a deadline, dedicate to finding someone
Yeah.
if I didn't already have people lined up.
I think that could be the problem is, the time, right? So if you
Mhm.
say you gotta make that selection within 90 days,
Right.
taking office or whatever.
Mhm.
Cause
I mean-
given this, the 3, the 2, and
Mhm.
you could end up where you're doing it right when you take off office.
Mhm.
So we should think of that when we implement this in 25, as a starting at let's say in May or June, so that a new council member will have a few months under their belt before they have to make a selection.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Anything else for tonight?
No, but I will just point out that some of the edits that we talked about last time are also provided in the packet for this time, so just taking what we talked about and seeing if those things were reflected here. Again, I apologize that I wasn't able to look too closely at those things prior to the meeting.
Right. Okay. So that concludes our meeting?
Can the public make comments afterward?
Sure.
Because I just had a thought, why